Welcome. My name is Coach Rudy Rodriguez, and I'm the founder of the ADHD Center for Success. I'm also the author of Beyond To-Do Lists, the book we're going to discuss today. I want you to know that we have made this video to help people understand how to use the book more effectively. I've heard from people that they open the book, they look at the pages, they see the forms, and what do I do? So I thought we'd use this video to walk you through and help you to learn to actually use some of the most essential forms most effectively to increase your productivity and to actually get the results that you want in your day and your life. Now, some of you have purchased the first edition of this book. Others of you have purchased the second edition, which was recently published. And in the second edition, we've added 2 additional forms. The first is the 15-minute week at a glance form. The second is the 15-minute what really happened form. As you know, we often plan our day and we have the best of intentions, but that's not really what happens. So this form will help you to look at what really happened in your day. Now, those of you who purchased the second edition will have the bonus of access to this video, access to the 2 additional forms, the 15-minute planners, and also you will now be able to download the forms and print them out on your own. In the first edition, you would have to go to the back of the book, the blank forms, and photocopy them. So we hope that will make that a lot easier. So before we proceed a bit farther, I want to be sure that you have the book in front of you, either edition 1 or the second edition, have it out ready for you. And we've sent you a packet that went with this video with the forms that we are going to review during today's video. So be sure you have those out ready to go, and we may actually have some exercises for you to do, so have some pencil or something to write with as well. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing in the book is an article I wrote some time ago, 7 Steps to Get Control of Your Day and Maybe Your Life. Now, there's obviously 7 key points in there. And we're not going to read the entire article, but some things I want you to take away. First of all, if you're going to have a productive day and maybe even your life, you've got to plan. And what I found is it's major important to have a written plan, not in your head, but a written plan. Now, in the plan, you're going to have activities, you're going to have to-dos, things you're going to do. So the second thing you want to do is prioritize that list. And we've given you a key to ABC method. A is urgent and important, B is important, not urgent, and C is not important, not urgent. So we've given you that key to use to help prioritize. The next thing, once you have your plan, it's prioritized, I recommend that you review the list or actually create the plan the night before. Oftentimes we get up in the morning, we meander around, and you're likely going to lose an hour, maybe 2 hours, something, just meandering around. Aimless. So by having a plan made the night before, you know what you're doing the next day. Then when you wake up in the morning, you know exactly where to get started and how to spend your time for your best maximum use. So there were other things in the article, but that's what I wanted to really point out for you as takeaways from that. And we're going to be reviewing some of that during today's video. So let's move on to the first form. And the first form is going to be the week at a glance. So I'd like you to pull that form out. And here it is here. And it's going to look like this. And so notice across the top, it's going to be Monday through Sunday. And across the vertical line here, it's going to be 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. So we really want to capture your entire day when you're planning. So here's an exercise. I want you to take this form and I want you to consider what a typical week might be of activities. And we're not going to do the to-do part yet. So I want you to list some events, some obligations. Maybe you've got to pick up the kids, some appointments that you've got, maybe a dental appointment, something like that, a therapy appointment. I'd like you to add if you go to the gym, if you're going to work out, where that may be. I'd also like you to put bedtime in there and things like that. So basically appointments, what I call the hardwired events, those obligations. So I'd like you to put that in there and have that written down. It'll take a few minutes to do that. Now, as you do that, be sure that you have things on Monday through Sunday. You may even have, you're going to bike that day, you're going to have a covered dish or so. But put that down there. Now I'd like to move to the second form. And the second form is going to be the daily planner. Some people refer to this as the daily to-do list. So as you see, this is really, it's a little blurry, but it gives you an opportunity to write down your to-dos for the day. There's some place down here also for some notes, but we're going to use the form here to write down some to-dos. So I'm going to ask you to take another moment, and I want you to write down maybe 3 or 4 to-dos. These are tasks, activities, phone calls, messages, maybe write a bill or something like that. Just very quickly, write 3 or 4 things down of things that you might have to do maybe tomorrow or today, or maybe you did it last week, but just for practice, just write 3 or 4 things down. Just take a moment to do that. If you need to pause, go ahead and do that. Now, what I want you to do is after you've got your list made, I want you to notice up here in the top left-hand corner is a key, and that's important. So I want you to look at your items on your list here, and I want you to put up here an A next to every item that is both important and urgent. Now, we all understand importance. Urgency, for our purposes, means this has to be done today or tomorrow. This is urgent. So put an A next to every item here of your items on your to-do list that is both important and urgent. You put that in the column here. Next, I want you to put a B next to every item that's important but not urgent. Now, these items, they may wait 2-3 days or so, maybe a little bit longer, but they have importance, but they've not reached urgency yet. So go ahead and list your Bs. And pause if you need to. Now we're going to look back at your list and we're going to look for any Cs. Now, your Cs are going to be not important and not urgent. And what's really interesting is most ADHD people will go for the C's before they go for the A's and B's. Maybe they're easier, they're not important, there's no pressure, but there's a tendency to go to those. So we want to be careful about that. So when you begin your day, you want to begin with the A's. You want to begin with the A's. If there's time, you'll go on to the B's. So now with this list in hand, I want you to go back to the week at a glance. Okay? So here's going to be the week at a glance again, and I want you to choose one day. Let's just say Wednesday. Okay? And hopefully you've got some items, some activities, and events in there. So what I want you to do now is look at your daily to-do, or your daily planner, excuse me, and take the first item off of this, and I want you then to find a place on Wednesday, an open slot, something that there's nothing there. And I want you to actually schedule that A to-do item. Give it a place, not just on a list, but assign it a time to do it. So consider if it's best to do this activity in the morning or the evening. And also consider the duration. How long will this activity actually take? So you want to find a slot of time that's going to allow you sufficient time to do that. And then go on maybe to your A2 or A3. And then if you still have time and space, you may want to go to your Bs. So we all have busy lives. We all have lots to do. One of the things about the daily planner that I didn't mention, let me go back. Many people will list endless numbers of things to do on their daily to-do list. So when they complete the day, maybe they completed 3 important items, but what you tend to do is look at the 15 items you didn't do. And so that's kind of depressing. It's not very motivating. So when you make your daily to-do list, be sure to only list maybe 3 or 4 activities. That may be all you can do, maybe 4 to 6, that's it. Anything else we might call a master list. But for our purposes, you're going to have a brief daily to-do list. Now we're going to put those into your week at a glance. So now what you're going to do is be able to look at that and see the items that you're going to do for today. And you'll see then the flow for the day. So let's say I'm going to get up and I have a little yoga exercise maybe, and then I've got to go to a meeting, and then I've got some clients to do, and then I've got lunch and so on and so forth. So in between all of that, I'm going to add the daily to-do things that need to be done for that day. Now, one important thing is don't add too many things on your daily or your week at a glance, because most of us will look at that and we're just going to feel overwhelmed. I can't do that. It's too much. We like white space. So be sure as you make your list that you have some empty pockets of time in there. So we have some white space that gives us a sense of that we're not busy every minute of the day. The other thing is I call that time in the bank, because when you have something, maybe you have 30 minutes here that's free and open. And maybe above that, you had an activity that took longer than you thought. Well, where am I going to do that? Well, now I have extra free time. I call that time in the bank that you can use to potentially accomplish that item. So the combination of the daily to-do and the week at a glance, those are the two tools that you'll get the very most from. And I really believe the week at a glance. So I invite people to use this, to fill it out, to test it, and to then immediately begin for next week and the following week. It's really easy to do. It takes a little bit of practice, but I think you'll get your best results when you use those two forms. So now let's look at, we have the week at a glance, and notice that the week at a glance has 30-minute segments in here. What we've done is we've made another version of this, the 15-minute planner, if I can get out of the way. And in this one, it gives you 15-minute segments. So it gives you actually more time to plan and maybe have some more things in there. And sometimes it's easier to plan with 15-minute segments rather than 30. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, the forms are the same. I actually prefer the 15-minute planner. I can get little tidbits in there, a little phone call or something. So that's what I recommend. Now, let's go on to the next form. And this is going to be the, we're going to look at the daily to do what really happened. So what you would do in this is much like the daily planning form. You put the things to do here. You would schedule them just as you would in your week at a glance here. But at the end of the day, what you're going to look at the last column, and here's the plan, here's what we planned, but what actually happened. So you'll look at these and see the difference. And when you do this, it's not to really beat you up or have you feel bad, but learn, oh, you know, I really need to plan more time for this, and I really underplanned over here. So we use it as a way to see what's working, what's not working, and maybe help you to plan better the next time. Okay, so those are important forms, primarily the week at a glance, the daily planner. Another way that I like to plan is using what I call the project planner. Now, I call this project planner, but it may be actually any major task. Let's say that I'm going to clean a room. Well, if I'm going to clean a room, you just don't walk in and clean the room. What are the subtasks that you have to do? Let's say I'm going to write a paper. Now, if I'm going to write a paper, what are the subtasks? Well, maybe I need to research that. And then maybe I need to write a draft or an outline. And then I need to have somebody else look at it. And then I send it in. So there's several subtasks that can occur. So each one of these blocks is going to represent a large project or task. And some projects will be busy enough that you'll have maybe 2 blocks or sometimes 3 blocks. But each of these would represent a different project or task that you have to do. So I also refer to this sometimes as the master to-do list, because you can have maybe literally 4 pages of this made up of all the different projects and then the little details of the things that need to be done. Now, so with a project planner, what you want to do is list your project, list the smaller to-do steps that need to be done. And again, we're going to have different projects, maybe 4 different projects. And if you look at your book, you will see a sample of that, and you'll see some samples of what that may look like. Now, what's important is that here's how we weave this together systematically. we're going to look not at the projects, but we're going to look at the subtasks, the little to-do things, only the bullet points in here. And I'm going to have you list an A next to every one of these bullet points that is important and urgent. We're not going to deal with the whole project list, not the whole thing. We're only going to look at, oh, here's an A. Here's an A over here, this little item. Here's an A over here. Then we're going to pull those items off, and then they're going to move on to the daily planner, because we're not going to deal with everything all at once. We're only going to take the urgent items, then they'll go on the daily planner. And from there, then they're going to be moved into the week at a glance at specific points in time on that day. You see how that works? So often we think of, I've got to do this, and we really don't have a plan or mechanism or system to do that. So these three forms in particular really work well together. So again, you take A items off the project planner. That's what you're going to do today. You move them on to the daily planner, and then on to the week at a glance. Now tomorrow, or maybe 2 days later, you go back to the project planner again, and then you say, okay, those are done. What's next? And then you identify what are your next A items. Remember, these items are both important and urgent. They need to be done soon. And then once again, they go to the daily planner and then on to the week at a glance. There's nothing more effective. This keeps you on task. It keeps you working with the most important and most urgent items first. And you'll find you'll get a lot accomplished with a number of projects at one time by just choosing the A items. So give it a try, see what you think. If you have any comments, feel free to email me. And if you have any questions, we can do that. Now, I'd like to move on to the next form. I developed this form some time ago, working with clients. And actually, I come to think of it, I made it for myself. Because in those days, I was making a newsletter. And this is the days when I would type up the newsletter. I would print it out, and I'd have to take it to the printer, and there was a number of steps. So what I found is I was always underestimating the time required to do a project of that sort. Now, it may be that you have like a paper maybe. And the paper, what we're going to do here, I can't show this to you without it being blurry, but you're going to look at the bottom of the page. And the bottom of the page that's the due date. So it's a reverse planner. We're going to plan in reverse. Here's the due date. That's D-Day. Now, if that project is going to be, or the paper is going to be completed and turned in that day, then what's going to happen before that? Well, maybe before that, I need to turn it in to my advisor, let's say, and they're going to look it over. Now, they're going to return it to me, and maybe I have more work to do. So that means that I need to get it to the advisor maybe 5 days away from the due date, giving me time to get it back and still do some work so it's done on time. Now, before I give it to the advisor, then now there's a draft that I have to make. Oh, this is not going to work with the blurriness. But so each time I'm going to go back, planning backwards what I've got to do and planning the appropriate duration of time to do this, to complete it by the due date. So we're going to use these columns here, and we're going to back up each time to get this done. Now, one more thing. You'll notice here we've got the numbers of days, 1 through 45. Over here, we've got the date. So if you've got a project, I want you to actually put the due date down here, the actual date, and then date each one of these going backwards. So let's say we have September 30, September 29, September 28, 27, so on and so forth. So these are going to be the actual dates you're going to be working with. And then next to that, you may want to put at least your Saturdays and Sundays. Block those out, or maybe shade those in, because maybe you're not going to work on Saturday and Sunday. And maybe, actually, maybe on day 28 through 24, you're going to take a trip. So you see, you don't actually have 45 days now. Now, maybe you have 39 days. So this helps us to plan more realistically in terms of dates, in terms of the reality of our time, the availability of our time. So in doing this, I've worked with many people. In fact, I've used this form to help some people plan Thanksgiving and getting ready for Thanksgiving, or Christmas, or a major report that they have, anything like that. So you can use a project planner along with a 45-day reverse planner, but this is to help you plan in reverse. And when we do that, I find it much more efficient. I find the gaps that I hadn't considered. Oh, I didn't think about this. So it's a great planner. So those are the primary planners that I wanted to discuss today. And I think if you use those tools, I think you'll find a lot of success. I think it's going to make life easier, less stressful. It's going to give you some structure to work with rather than just kind of wandering and trying this and trying that. Now, you don't have to use the entire system. You don't have to use every form in the book. You may look and say, well, I just want to use the week at a glance, and I want to use the daily planner and maybe the 45-day. That's fine. Or maybe the project planner. I really recommend that. But you can also use them systematically. So it's your choice. Use them independently or systematically. Some other forms you'll find in the book may be a monthly planning form, another weekly form that we use to plan next week. So I'm not actually planning it, but next week I know I've got this coming up. So it's just a holding place for that. And then I also have a financial planner. Now, this is very different because it's going to be basically a spreadsheet that has you list your bills, the due dates, and then you can track your expenses to come up with real-time understanding of what's really in the bank, not just what the bank tells you is available. So those are the forms. We hope that you enjoy those. We hope that you use them. And if you, hold on here. Let me pause for a moment. So I wanted to pause for a moment to be sure I didn't miss anything, any content, important content for this video. So I do want to clarify that both the purchasers of the first edition and second edition will have access to the link to download the forms. In fact, you should have that on the agenda that we sent you with the packet of forms. So everyone will have access to that. I want you to invite you actually to watch this video again. Go through it again, but be sure you have the forms in front of you and maybe practice using the forms, pause as needed to fill the forms out, and then come back and watch it as many times as you need. Once again, I think people looked at the book and they have the directions, but how do I use this? So hopefully I made it easier for you. Hopefully you now understand how to use some of the forms effectively. And now you can see how to use it systematically so that you can gain better results in your life and really actually reduce stress and the overwhelm that often occurs for us with ADHD. And in mentioning that, I also want to say I designed the book primarily for people with ADHD, but not only for ADHD. I've had several people to tell me about the book or purchase the book or that have used the forms that are not ADHD, but they do have organizational challenges. They have trouble managing their time, getting things done. So it's for everyone, anyone that can use this book. I invite you to use that. Now, the book is available on Amazon.com. I prefer that you buy it through my site, ADHDcenterforsuccess.com, and there's a tab there where you can purchase the book. And if you enjoyed it and you found it helpful, then share it with others. Maybe a holiday gift. Maybe invite others to purchase it as well, and they will be able to download the forms and have access to the video as well. So if there are other questions that you have, maybe something I haven't spoken to or any other questions that I haven't addressed, feel free to email me. It's on your to-do list agenda, the video agenda, and it's Coach Rudy at ADHDcenterforsuccess.com. So feel free to email me again. And you know, I love hearing comments. Sometimes the comments I'll use as a testimonial. Sometimes I'll use the comments to update the next edition of the book. So I love to hear your comments. So please send them to me. Again, Coach Rudy at ADHDcenterforsuccess.com. And by the way, if you haven't seen my website, again, it's the ADHDcenterforsuccess.com. ADHDcenterforsuccess.com. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it helpful. And I look forward to hearing from you. Have a good day.